Good evening. I have the lovely Phil with me. Hiya, Phil. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, I'm Fil Reid and I write for Dragon Blade Publishing in the US. I've got 6 books already published, which are called the Guinevere series. They're historical romance, and I've just published, I've written a few more. I've just had published today with Dragon Blade my first Regency romance, which is called The Cornish Mermaid.
And congratulations on your publication. I didn't realise I would have posted it on my group. I will post it when we finish. So
Oh,
post the
thank
link
you.
for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what made you want to, what was the point where you thought, okay, that's it now. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write the book, but I've always wanted to write.
Well, I've written all my life. When I was a little girl, my mum and dad bought me a petite children's typewriter, and I wrote my first story. My mum had it somewhere, and it was about 3 lines long, but it was a story. And I was about 5, and then all through my childhood, so I've written always. Through my childhood, I used to write pony stories because that was my main interest. And as I grew older, my stories grew up with me. But I found out in my 40s that I've got Asperger's syndrome. And I found out because 2 of my sons have got it. The first one was diagnosed, they were both diagnosed late for various reasons. And the first one said to me, "Mum, you so have it as well." Anyway, when the second one was diagnosed, I thought, well, I'll find out if I've got it. I mean, you do the online process where you go through the questions and it says, "You're very likely have got it." But I really wanted someone to tell me whether I had or not. And I have. And so I realised that my obsession with King Arthur is to do with Asperger's, because most Asperger's people have an obsession. You see, my 2 sons, the oldest one is obsessed with the Titanic. He has countless models of the Titanic. And my second son, who's 23, his obsession is bell ringing. You can have enough of bells, I can tell you, because he doesn't just ring them, he records them and makes us listen to them. Anyway, so my obsession was King Arthur from when I was a very small child, and Mum and Dad took me to see The Sword in the Stone, the Disney film, and I just loved it. I wanted to be Wart when I was a little girl because it just seemed he had such a good time with all those magical creatures that Merlin turned him into. Anyway, when I was about I don't know, 19, I think, 19 or 20, I decided I'd write a book about King Arthur. So I did. But it was very naive because, I mean, when you're 19 or 20, especially when you've got Asperger's, because Asperger's makes you very immature. And I was always very immature when I was a teenager and sort of early 20s. So my book was very immature. But I had all the knowledge. So I researched it all my life. So basically, about 2017 to 18, I decided I would write a book. What happened was, I'm with my second husband, and when we were first together, we decided we'd have an outing to Glastonbury, which is possibly Avalon. You know, it's strongly associated with Arthurian legend. And we went to Glastonbury tour, and we parked around the back, and we walked through the field to come up to it. When we going through the field, my husband had brought his camera and tripod. And this was in the days, it was 1998, probably, I think. This was in the days when he had a film camera rather than a digital one. And he'd loaded it with something called infrared film, which makes grass look white. So you can take a photograph of a green landscape and it will look quite white. Anyway, he took 4 photographs on motor drive. And in the evening, when he processed his own films and things, so you have to do it very carefully you have to not only go in a dark room, you also have to have it in a dark bag because it's so sensitive to light. And he processed the negatives, and he looked at the negatives and he went, "There's something very strange about these photographs." So he's got 4 in a row, and you can see the hill tower on the top is fading. Everything else is the same. Third photograph, there's no tower at all. You can't see it. Fourth photograph, tower's back, perfectly normal. And I'd seen him take these photographs, and he sent them off because his father was an optical physicist and had them checked to see if anything was wrong with the film, and there was nothing wrong with it. Nobody could make an explanation. But I wondered if we had had a glimpse of what the tower looked like, what the hill looked like before the tower was on it. And then I wondered what would happen if you were in the tower when it vanished. Would you vanish with it? Anyway, the idea for my book was born because Gwen, who's the heroine of my Guinevere novels, is a 21st century librarian whose father was an Arthurian scholar. And she goes to scatter his ashes. He's died. And she goes to scatter his ashes on Glastonbury Tor early one morning. And when she goes into the tower, she sees a gold ring on the floor and she picks it up, and she touches it and she's yanked back in time to the 5th century, the time of King Arthur. And she is destined to be, she's called Gwen after Guinevere, she's destined to be the woman she's named after. And that was what set me off writing. And I got into it and I'd written 2 books and I saw a competition. We already talked about competitions, didn't we? I saw a competition and it was a free one. So I thought, well, I'll enter that. So I entered it and just forgot about it. And that was about September 2020, I think. And then in April 2021, I got an email. Hang on. Yeah, it was 2021. I got an email saying, congratulations, you're on the long list. And I thought, well, I better have a look and see what they published, because it was a publisher that I just hadn't. So I had a look and I thought, oh, they're not going to like my book. Then my book's not going to win. Anyway, come July, they did it on Facebook and I won it. So, and it was publication. So they published my first 3 books. In between when they announced I'd won it on the 1st of July, and when all the contracts went through, I hastily had written book number 3 because they'd said they liked a 3-book series. So I zipped through book number 3. So when everything went through to contracts, I had 3 books ready. And that was how I came to be writing. That's how I come to be writing for Dragon Blade Publishing.
Wow, that's quite a story. Would you say that your Asperger's helps your writing, or do you think it's a hindrance?
It helps me enormously because I'm very focused. I don't know, do you know anybody with Asperger's?
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah. I'm incredibly focused on one thing at a time. So when I'm writing, I do nothing but write. Well, I also have something called Meniere's disease, which it's in your inner ear, and it's to do with the fluids in your inner ear, and it gives you very bad vertigo. So actually, you know, you've got your laptop on your lap, it's moving very slightly. And because you're moving it slightly, it's giving me a slight, you know, because looking at the computer, because the computer screen, scrolling on a computer screen can set me off. So if I'm feeling vertiginous, I can't use the computer. So that's the only thing that holds me back, not the Asperger's in any way.
Yeah, one of my favourite authors has got Meniere's, so I know quite a lot. He shares quite a lot about it. So I'd never heard of it until he said. But have you heard of Tony Forder?
No, who?
Tony Forder.
No, I haven't, but I will have a look.
Yeah, he's got Meniere's, and he puts his main character has it. So I've learned more about it from him.
Is he on Facebook?
Yes.
All right.
He's mentioned a lot in the crime community because he's quite popular. So
might have a look at his books in that case if he's got a hero with Meniere's, because it can be very debilitating. I mean, literally, when I've got a vertigo attack, I have to lie down in a dark room and with my sick bowl. So it's not nice.
Yeah, he's going deaf, I think, because of it.
I am deaf.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd never heard of it until I met Tony, and now I know not a lot, but more than I did certainly before.
Well, I've had it quite a long time, probably about 17 years, and it's supposed to burn itself out.
Oh, okay.
It hasn't yet. So, and I don't know whether it ever will. So, but I mean, there are some. Do you know what's her name? Joanna David. She's an actress. She's got it apparently.
Oh, okay.
She's often in things like Midsummer Murders and things like that.
I'd probably know if I saw her.
Married to Edward Fox. She's the mother of Amelia Fox.
Oh yes, I do know.
Yeah, I read somewhere that she's got it. So
yeah, strange. But yeah, definitely check out Tony, and yeah, his book. I mean, his books are great anyway. I love you'll fall in love with his character. I jokingly call his fans Bliss X because his main character is Bliss, DI Bliss or DCI Bliss. I call us Bliss X because it's mostly women. There are a couple of men, but yeah, I'm not sure if he likes it or not, but it's stuck, so it's tough. Bless him, poor sods. So you said that you'd written 2 books. Were you always planning on writing a series?
Yes, I was, but I didn't know how long it was going to be. When I wrote the first book, I didn't know when it was going to finish. In fact, it was about 135,000 words. And I read all the information. It said that's far too long. So I shortened it to about 114, 110. I got it down to 110. And then I entered another competition. This is before the one I won. And it had to be under 100,000 words for that, which really did it a lot of good, I think. I went through it with a fine tooth comb and I took words out here, there, and the end. I took short scenes out and I got it down to 100,000 words. In a way, book 2 could be the same as book 1. It could be, they could be joined together because they run straight one after the other. In fact, they all do, but 1, 2, 3, and 4 run one after the other. But by the time I got to the end of book 4, I was planning for Gwen the story to cover 20 years, and I basically had covered 4 years, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I can't write 20 books. Silly. So I had to do some leaps forward in time so that I brought the characters further forward, because I thought 6 books is probably enough. So I knew where it was going to finish. As soon as I wrote book 1, as soon as I started book 1, I knew exactly where it was going to finish. I just didn't know how I was going to get there.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's fun to write a series, isn't it? And to sort of have an idea of, where you're going to take your characters and what you're going to put them through.
Well, because I'm writing about King Arthur, there's a lot of information around. I mean, nobody knows anything really about him for sure, but one of the things I used as kind of the backbone of the story, there was a monk in the beginning of the 9th century called Nennius. I mean, whether he really exists or not is a moot point, but he wrote a book, and in his book he lists Arthur's 12 battles, and there's a lot of discord about that as well, as to whether they were real or not, and were they taken from other characters? Did they come from different times? Could they possibly have been Arthur's or someone else's? But I decided, because it's kind of a thing a lot of people know about, I thought I'd use the 12 battles. So Gwen knows the 12 battles, and she also knows that his final battle, which is the Battle of Camlan, which is like a 13th battle, kind of unlucky, isn't it, is the one in which he probably dies. Well, the one in which he's supposed to be mortally wounded, taken off to Avalon, and he will come back in at Britain's hour of need. And she knows that one's coming after the 12 battles, but she isn't sure that the 12 battles are real. But they turn out, throughout the book, she keeps getting more and more worried because the battles turn out to be real. Because, for example, she knows the legends and she knows whatever history there is, and she knows about the sword in the stone, and she rather mistakenly, because Merlin is saying to her in the first book, when she doesn't want to stay, he says to her, look, we need you because you're what's going to make Arthur the great king of legend. You're going to make it, because of you, he'll become the high king and he'll be such a great king. And she says, no nonsense. She says, you stick a sword in a stone and whoever pulls it out is going to be the high king. You did that. So he makes it happen at the end of the first book. and and she's like, oh no, that's my fault. So she's really worried to tell them anything at all after that, because she thinks she doesn't know if what's happening is meant to happen or if she can change something. Like in 2211 and 63, the Stephen King book. She all the things that she does, for example, in book 1, she's present when Arthur's got 2 sisters called Morgana and Morgause, and Morgause is having her goes into labour at a very inopportune moment when Gwen and Morgause are shut in a kitchen while there's a battle going on, and all they've got is the cook to help them. And so Gwen, who has done a first aid course at the library, that's all she's done, and listened to her best friend describe the birth of her child in gory detail, to the extent that she's terrified of giving birth herself. She has to help at the birth of Morgause's baby. And when the baby's born, Morgause says immediately, welcome to little Medraut. And Medraut is the earlier version of Mordred. And Mordred is the man who is going to lead the opposition against Arthur at his final battle and kill Arthur. Well, or wound Arthur, however you believe it. And so she's like, oh my God, should I not have helped it? Perhaps I should kill this baby. Well, she doesn't, because you can't kill a baby. But she's all the way through, Medraut's a right little toad. He's going to be a villain. And she against him all the way through, but his mother spoils him and he's horrible.
Oh, I love it. I love all those little connections and stuff as well. But was it hard to keep up with them? Did you have to have like a spreadsheet or anything to try and remember all the?
I did have a list of my characters. I had a list of all the characters and their attributes, like what colour eyes they had and things like that. And what they were supposed to know. Because the thing about when you're writing a book, especially when you're writing a crime book like you do, you have to remember which character knows which fact, don't you? And I've found that in the book I'm writing at the moment, which is the one I've just finished, which is for my new series next year. There are various things in it that there are secrets in it, and I've got to think, who knows the secret? And then when I was revising it, I thought she was telling somebody the secret. I thought, well, these people already know. I had to change this bit. She can't tell them the secret because they already know it. And I put it in because I got confused at some point. Anyway, it's all sorted now.
Out of all the books you've written, what character have you had the most fun writing, and which character gave you the most trouble?
Oh, I loved writing Merlin. I loved Merlin. My editor, who is such a nice lady, she said he's the best Merlin she's ever read. She really likes it. Merlin isn't an old man with white hair. Merlin is a contemporary of Arthur and Gwen. He looks like them. He looks about their age. He's probably quite a lot older because he's got magic. And he is just such fun to write. I love it. I also like writing the villains. I love writing villains. They don't give me any trouble because there's some good villains in the books. It gives me the most trouble. I don't think any of them really give me any trouble. They just kind of leap off the page for me, which I love doing. I found writing Regency is slightly more difficult to start with, but I'm getting into Regency now, and I'm on book number 5 with the writing stage. And I've got a 3-book series which I'm writing for next year, and I've done one, and I'm about to start the next one.
Would you consider writing anything more contemporary where you don't have to do so much research?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, not sure about that. I don't find contemporary quite so interesting. Not to read. I mean, I do like. I mean, I do like contemporary crime novels, but I couldn't write one. I don't think I've got the kind of brain that would work out. I'd get confused about who knew what, wouldn't I? And I'd be giving them the wrong information.
Then it's not as easy anyway because you've got to contend with forensics,
Oh,
technology, mobile phones, CCTV now, and then you've got dash cams and you've got ring doorbells and stuff. So
yeah.
there's quite a lot to contend with
It's
now.
clever, isn't it? You've got to be really clever with all and knowledge of all the stuff, and they're very untechnical. I had a problem with my computer today, and I rang my son, who is a software developer, and he didn't know what was wrong with it. So I rang my son-in-law, who does something else with computers, and he's just in between jobs at the moment, so he was handily at home. And he basically said to me, "Turn it off and turn it back on again," and it worked.
Oh, I know. It just, yeah, they're so clever, and yet sometimes as silly as things.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. Some of the stuff that technology can do, you just turn it off and turn it on. Like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, the good thing is that technology breaks. So, if you're writing a crime novel, and obviously money's tight, so CCTV cameras might be broken and the council can't afford to fix them. So then obviously your criminal can go that way
Hmm.
because the camera's broken. There's ways around it.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I would do anything contemporary because I just think I'd find it too difficult.
Yeah,
I quite
fair
like
enough.
the research anyway. You find out so many interesting things when you're doing research for historical novels and going down little rabbit holes and things. I joined a group on Facebook quite by chance, and they were posting maps. And they posted the most amazing map of London in 1800. And I've been looking for one for ages and I just couldn't find one. And this one has got the individual houses on it with their numbers written on them.
Oh my God.
You can't see all of it at once. You have to kind of move around with the mouse, so you can't. It's difficult because when you zoom out, you get a much blotchier picture, and it's not very accurate at all. And you can't. It's not the same. But when you zoom in, you can zoom really close in, and you can find the net. Because I wanted to send in the book, the one I've just done, the one I've just been writing, which is for next year. I wanted to send them into the slums of London, and I could actually find the names of the wharfs and things. And in London how they have what are called stairs down onto the River Thames. and he'd got all the names of the stairs and the names of the wharfs and everything. It was just
Oh
really,
wow.
really good.
I love that. I mean, I don't live that far from London and I love it as a city anyway, but the history of it is just incredible.
It is, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
I know there's one writer recently that's written about a women's only hospital that I didn't know existed just after World War II. And then another writer writes about the Bow Street Society, set in the like a bunch of police, I think.
The Bow
Uh,
Street Runners.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that all had different. So, and you know, just through them, I've learned more. But yeah, it's so fascinating.
Yeah, I brought the Bow Street Runners into the end of my book. They don't actually have much to do because the hero sorts it out by himself. But I found that there was a particular, I can't remember what his name was now. I've got a picture of him. He was a particular character who was in charge of the Bow Street Runners at that time. So I have him come to the house, and he's a real person. And he wears a white top hat. So I put that he's got a white top hat on, which is fun. And I sent them off to get married. So it's really what you can find is amazing. I wanted to find a local church to where they were living in London. So I found the local church, and then it handily gave me the list of the vicars. So that was kind, wasn't it? So
Okay, yeah.
I chose the right vicar. I put him in it too. He's called the Reverend Andrews. And he was
Yeah,
actually the vicar at the right time.
that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, the stuff you can find. The only thing that I know about the town I live, which is Dunstable, is that our church was built in like 1192, and Henry VIII stopped there at one point to annul one of his marriages.
Mm.
That's what Dunstable's famous for. Is that Henry VIII?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm down in Cornwall now, which is where the books I'm coming out this year are written about. So it means I can go and visit all the places in Cornwall. I love to visit the places that I write about. And book one is set right down at the end of Cornwall. And it's a mixture of two little coves that I went to. So they are real coves, but I've kind of mixed them up together because one of them's got too many houses in it and the other one is a bit too steep. So I've mixed them all up together, and that's the cove I imagine the story taking place in. And that's quite good fun. Oh, and I had Jamaica Inn in it as well. Have you ever read Jamaica Inn? Daphne
I
du Maurier.
haven't. I should. I know it's one of those books I should read, and I haven't.
Well, it was quite. I read a lot of Daphne du Maurier when I was younger, and I was coming. We'd been to the beach. I think it was the first or second time we went down to the beach because we've not been here very long, and we were coming back, and we drove past a turning, and it said it's written. It looks like it's written Tai War Dreath, but I found out it's pronounced Tower Dreth, and underneath it was written The House on the Strand, and I thought, hang on, there's a Daphne du Maurier book called The House on the Strand. So out came the phone and I Googled it. And it's where she wrote the book about. And she actually lives, St Austell Bay has got a beach in it called Par Sands. And further out from Par Sands is a headland that sticks out, and it's got a little, I think it's called the Day Marcus. It's kind of like a lighthouse, but it's a Day Marcus. I don't think it's got a light. And on the other side, well, on top of that hill, virtually, and then the beach, is where the house where she lived, which is called Menabilly, and it's Manderley from the book Rebecca. And down in the bay at the bottom is where, in the book, Rebecca's dead, but we don't know why during the book. Which is quite interesting because I watched the original version of Rebecca, and it starred Jeremy. Is it Jeremy Brett, the guy that used to play Sherlock Holmes a long time ago? And it starred him as Maxime de Winter, and Mrs. de Winter, the young Mrs. de Winter who replaces Rebecca, was played by Joanna David when she was young, the woman with Meniere's. Anyway, she finds out eventually that Rebecca was drowned in her boat in the little bay. So that's on my list. I'm going to go and fangirl there. Have a look at Manderley and have a look at the bay where Rebecca drowned.
Wow. Because I didn't realise I go to the Harrogate Crime Festival, and I didn't realise I'd been going for a couple of years, but they hold it in the hotel where Agatha Christie was found after she'd gone missing.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so it's a really important venue, and I had no idea. I found out someone just mentioned it in passing. I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I've like massively. It's so cool now that I know that. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
very
that is,
cool.
they must have done that on purpose, mustn't they?
I would imagine so. Yeah, it's been going for about 20 years. I think. I think it was its 20th anniversary last year, maybe.
Yeah, I saw you'd been up there on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it again next month. It's insane, absolutely knackering, but I can't wait until I don't go. Such a beautiful city as well, actually,
Mm.
or town, not sure. Town?
I don't know if it's a town or a city. I've no idea. Don't they have to have a cathedral if they're cities?
Yes, I think it's a town. Well, I think that they used to. Now they just give city status out to anyone, don't they?
Yeah.
They made Milton Keynes a city. I'm pretty sure Milton Keynes doesn't have a cathedral.
Doesn't sound like it should, does it?
Lots of roundabouts, but no shepherds.
Mm.
Um, what was I going to ask you? Do you hide any secret jokes or messages or Easter eggs in your book?
Not really, no. Um, I have lots of twists in them. I catch people out because one of the things people have said about my books is I didn't see that coming. And I love doing that. So I guess I put twists in. So that's very good fun to write, especially in
Yeah,
the King Arthur ones. Because I know so many of the smallest legends about King Arthur. It's very easy to put things in that people don't know about. Because there's a common people said to me, "Did King Arthur have children?" Yes, he did. And he has children in the book. And they have there is legendary, it's not, I mean, no one knows it's true or not. There is legend about what happened to them, so it happens to them.
okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose, you know, you can play around with that as well, you know, especially if no one really knows. And they're
Mm,
fiction anyway, so it doesn't really matter either way, does it?
mm, no.
Is the setting important to you as well when you're writing?
Yeah. Apparently, I mean, I really like writing descriptions. I love to make sure, I love to, I can see it clearly in my head, and I like to describe what I can see. And people have said to me that it's like reading a travel guide sometimes because they feel like they're really there because they like the descriptions. So I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing because I know that a lot of romance books don't put so much description in, but I like to. I think I can do it in few words. I try and do it in as few words as possible so that it's not great chunks of description, but if I introduce a new character, I want to make sure the reader knows what the character looks like, or what I think the character looks like. So I mean, I'll say if they've got a bald head or something, um, or I don't know, greasy skin, or I'll mention something like that. And you only got to mention one or two things, and it gives you a picture immediately, doesn't it? If you say he's got a bald head and greasy skin and a spot on the end of his nose, gives you a really good picture of the character without too much work, doesn't it? And I like that with settings as well, but I like to visit all the settings. So I know there's which one is it in? It's in book 5 of the Guinevere series. The most important battle that Arthur ever fought is supposed to be one that's called the Battle of Mons Badonicus, the Battle of Badon. And nobody knows where any of these battles were. But there were lots of theories about it. And my personal theory, which a lot of people think is possible, is that it's a place called Liddington Castle, which is just outside of Swindon on the Downs. And it's where a Roman road crosses the Ridgeway ancient path. And that seems to me like a very good place. And just up the road is a village that's called Badon. It's spelled Baydon. But Liddington Castle is above a village called Badbury. And Liddington Castle used to be called Badbury Rings. I think that's what it was. So I put my battle there, but I went to it. I went and had a look at it. We walked. It's not by the road. You have to do a bit of a walk up the hill to get to it. So I went and had a look at it, and I stood on the battlements because it's a hill fort. I stood on these battlements on the earth mound, and I looked back, and you can see, although you're on the top of the downs, they're that shape. So you've got the scarp face there. And I was looking back that way, and you can see the Roman road. You can see the Roman road's hidden down here, but about 2 miles away, you can see the Roman road. So when I put my characters in the book, I have them stand there, and they stand where I stood. But also they say to each other, Arthur says that he stood there with his father when he was a boy, and Gwen says she stood there with her father for like 1,500 years in the future. And I stood there too with my husband, not my father, but they everybody stood on the same spot.
Oh, I love that. That's lovely. Yeah, that's brilliant. That kind of rings a bell as well. I wonder if I've ever been there or near there.
It's yeah, it's near the B4000 road that runs along the old Roman road. So as you're driving along the B4000, you're on the Roman road. And I think it's called. There's two Ermine streets and they kind of vary. There's one that goes up north and there's one that goes that way. And one of them's the Ermine Way and one of them's Ermine Street. I think this one might be the Ermine Way. I can't remember. But I mean, they're not contemporary names with King Arthur anyway. They're just names that probably came in with Saxons. But the other thing I did, I took them in book 3 to Hadrian's Wall. And we went to Hadrian's Wall and we went to Vindolanda. And when they actually stay in Vindolanda, so a lot of the book takes place in, a lot of the chapters, not the whole book, takes place in Vindolanda. And I have them stay in the house of the chief magistrate, the guy who's in charge. So I went and stood there too. And I know they're not real characters, and I know they didn't really stand there, but to stand where your characters have stood is just such fun.
Yeah, yeah, help with writing as well, I imagine, to go back there and remember what you saw or what you could see and
Mm.
stuff as well. So yeah.
Well, we had quite a strange experience on Hadrian's Wall. Because of my vertigo, I can't walk very far. In case I'm certainly not along a high thing like Hadrian's Wall, I can tell you. I don't like heights either. Anyway, we had our son and his partner with us, and their two dogs, one who was old and one who was young. So they couldn't take the two dogs with them, and we had our dog. So they would walk from a place called Marcastle 42, Marcastle 42 to Housesteads. It's about 5 miles, something like that. So they would walk along, and it's along the Wind Sill. So definitely, I wouldn't have liked it. I'd have been going, everybody lie down, because I don't like heights. Anyway, so we kept the 3 dogs, and Patrick took some photographs, and he's a bit anal about taking photographs. He never will take a photograph if anybody else is in it, and he rarely takes a photograph with anybody in it at all, including me. So anyway, he took this photograph. He took a lot of photographs, but he didn't look at it afterwards. And we got home, and we'd been home, I don't know, a good few weeks. And he was going through his photographs, looking through them and seeing which ones he liked, which ones he wanted to get rid of. This is by then it's on a digital camera. And he said, there's something very strange in this photograph. Come and have a look. So I went and had a look. And you can see me at the front leaning on the wall. And then you can see 2 of the dogs. There's only 2 of the dogs. The other dog must be behind the camera. So 2 of the dogs at the side. And then you can see further up the hill, and the wall's going up the hill. And on the brow of the hill, there's a person. And it's a Roman soldier. Definitely a Roman soldier.
Okay.
He's, you can't see all of him. You can see sort of waist upwards, maybe a little bit above the waist upwards, because he's clearly behind the hill. Or I don't know. Anyway, we blew it up and we looked at it and we thought, well, Patrick said there was no one there. And we know there was no one there. It was kind of one of those days where it's almost raining, but not, because it
Yeah.
was September, October time. And there was no one up there. There was only us. I mean, we hadn't seen him go past us. He certainly didn't come past us the other way, because we were waiting there a while with the dog, letting them have a wee and things. And we weren't in a hurry because, and there he
Mm.
was.
Oh, blimey.
Oh, but I googled it to see whether there were ghosts on Hadrian's Wall, and it said Castle 42. A ghost has been seen a lot, basically. Roman soldier
Oh, wow.
in daylight hours. So
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
I don't know what else he could have been. There isn't anything else he could have been because there was no one else there.
Mm. Okay. I'll try and remember that if I ever go to Hadrian's Wall.
Oh,
I've
you're
never done
frozen.
one. Um, if you were able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you spend a day with? Mm.
Um, I think I'd like to spend the day with my grandparents because they died before I was born. My They lived in Paris after World War One. That was where my father was born, and my grandfather died in 1935, and my grandmother in 1945. So a long time ago. And my dad, first of all, I think my dad was 9 and then 19. Um, and I've seen photographs of them. I would just like to have met them.
Yeah, the stories they could have told.
Yeah, yes, they could. Yeah, it just it's just when you don't know part of your family, it's always a question mark, isn't it? Oh,
Yeah, I've been really lucky. I knew my great nan, and
mm.
then at one point I had sort of had three sets of grandparents. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I've got my nan left now, but yeah, it's I've heard my granddad died a couple of years ago. He was 95, so you can imagine the stuff that he had to tell.
That's a good age. Well, I only ever had the one granny, which was my mum's mum, because her dad died in 1947, I think, something like that. So, I mean, well, I was born in 1958, so well before I was born. I just think my grandfather on my dad's side was an architect, and he designed things in Paris. Um, I would like to talk to him about it. And my dad used to tell me stories about him and his grandmother, and I just wanted to know them.
Yeah. So from the moment you first started writing up to now, what's been your absolute highlight?
Being published.
Being
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Winning that competition and being published. I never thought I would. It's such a hard thing to do, isn't it? It's so hard to find a publisher. I think I read somewhere that of all the people who set out to write a book, about 1% finish it. And of that 1%, I think something like 3% ever get published. It's like tiny, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never thought it would happen to me. And I was thinking, I'm getting too old now. No one will publish someone my age. But actually, lots of romance writers are getting on a bit.
Same with crime writers, although there is a new generation now, but most of the crime writers I knew when I first started doing this were slightly older.
Mm.
So yeah, but yeah, there's quite a new young generation actually of crime writers now. So
And my youngest son, who's 23, he's a writer, kind of like a part-time writer because he's a student. Um, but he writes for Dungeons and Dragons.
oh
So he
wow,
writes Dungeons and Dragons stories.
okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, he won't ever. I say to him, would you like me to just go over and proofread it for you? He goes, no. So he's always been good at writing those, so I expect they're probably okay, but they've probably got a few typos in them. But probably Dungeons and Dragons readers don't mind.
No, no, I wouldn't have thought so. Well, I don't know. Some readers could be quite fussy, can't they?
I doubt Dungeons and Dragon readers are.
And what's the best feedback you've had? The best review or the best email?
Oh, I've had lots of of good reviews and things. So I love it when people. I'm never going to get over the fact that people I don't know are reading my books. Just can't get over it. And then I certainly can't get over that people I don't know are telling me they like my books. Um, I had a lot of 5-star reviews and people telling me that they like my characters. I mean, like my editor saying he was the best Merlin she's ever read. So that's just, I love her. She's so great. Yeah, we get on really, really well. She understands me and I understand her. And
Yeah, that's perfect, isn't it? That's exactly what you need.
yeah.
Well, I can't think of any more questions for you unless you think there's anything really obvious that I haven't asked you.
No, I don't suppose. I suppose I ought to tell you a bit more about the book that's out today. Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. If
Well,
you've got a copy of it to show off for review.
no, I haven't. I don't get the free copies until after it's come out. They have to come all the way from America, so
Yeah,
it
of
takes a little
course.
while to get here. Um, I'll send you the cover so that you can put it on your page. It's about because I hadn't ever written a Regency book before, and because I had written a time slip story, I thought I thought I'll do a time slip story because it will be easier for me to write what she sees in the Regency period if she's looking at it through my eyes, and she'll think things are strange. She does. She gets. I don't know if you know, but knickers were a thing that came in quite late. So back in Regency times, she gets given this pair of knickers, and they're 2 legs. That's why they're a pair of knickers, because there's nothing in the middle. And she's completely and utterly horrified that she's got to wear a pair of knickers that are kind of gappy. So I can put that in because normally, I mean, you wouldn't mention what someone was wearing like that, would you? If it was a person who lived in that time, there'd be no need to mention the fact they're horrified by gappy knickers. But she keeps her ordinary knickers on, I can tell you. She's not going to go around just with gappy knickers on. And there's things like that. So anyway, she it goes on. She's Cornish by birth, not by birth. Her mother was Cornish and her grandmother, so she's called Morvoran, and that means sea maiden in Cornish or mermaid. So she's the Cornish mermaid, and she gets to go down on holiday to Cornwall with her boyfriend, who is a bit of a rude word. He's not very nice. And all he wants to do is go fishing. And she persuades him, she wants to go for a ride along the beach. So they go for a ride along the beach. He gets a sore bottom from riding. And he says, well, you're going to have to come fishing with me. So on the last day of her holiday, they go out in one of those little fishing boats that takes tourists out fishing, mackerel fishing. And she is not liking it. Now, I base this on the fact that I went mackerel fishing with my husband when we lived in Pembrokeshire, and I did not like it. And I was absolutely terrified the entire time we were going to sink, to the point of crying. Anyway, so she's pretty much like me. And she is convinced that bad things are going to happen, and they do, because the boat does a big toss on a swell, and she kind of bounces up in the air, water hits her, the spray comes up, she lets go of the side because she's hanging onto it for dear life. She comes up in the air, when she comes down, the boat's not there, it's moved, and she goes into the water, and she just thinks she's drowning. Meanwhile, in 1811, the hero, who is a viscount and a smuggler, is out in his little fishing boat, because he actually has a stately home in Wiltshire, but he also has a smaller home in Cornwall near the Cove. And his uncle, because his mother was basically the daughter of a Cornish farmer, his uncle is a smuggler, and he goes down there to visit his uncle in a small farmhouse, and he's out fishing in his little boat. And when he puts his nets in for the last he hasn't caught anything, he's a bit fed up, puts the nets in one final time, comes up with a girl in his nets, and she's wearing jeans. Now the jeans are wet, she's wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and the jeans are wet, and he thinks he's caught a mermaid because she looks kind of a bit like a mermaid's tail with her legs together and her jeans on. So, and then he thinks she's dead, and he thinks, what am I going to do with a dead body? For half a minute he thinks about putting her back in again, and then she coughs up some water, so he decides that she's alive and he'd better help her. So she ends up in his farmhouse, and from that she can't get back, and so she eventually realizes that she's in 1811, and he decides he's going to have to take her up to his mother and sister in his estate, at his estate in Wiltshire, which he does. And it goes on from there. Obviously, he's the love interest, so she's going to end up with him, but it's a roundabout. And he's the one she's got to save as well, because she's discovered that in the future, well, in her time, she discovered that he's going to get killed, but she doesn't know when because she didn't pay much attention. So when she goes back, she decides that the reason she's gone back is to save him. So she has to save him. And that's what happens in that story. And that came out today.
And what's the title?
The Cornish Mermaid.
Of course, makes sense. Yep, I will share the link to that when I post it. And if anyone wants to buy the rest of your book and find out more about you, where can they do so?
Well, they're all on Amazon. I've got a website which is well, you can't really buy them. You can't buy them on my website. So there's not really any point putting that. I can say what it is. It's just filreid.com, which is very easy. Just one word, Fil Reid, no gap. But the best place to go is just go and look for me on Amazon. Just put Fil Reid in on Amazon, you'll get my books. And you can get them on Kindle Unlimited if you've got that, and it won't cost you anything. And I think the first book that came out today is only 99 cents. So
Even better.
yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed chatting to you.
Likewise.